Imagine this. A little boy sits on the cold tile floor of a giant corporate lobby, his small hands trembling, tears running down his cheeks, and the sound of his cries echoing against marble walls where people usually walk with polished shoes and stiff suits. Everyone hurries past, annoyed or awkward, pretending not to notice the child's breakdown. But then, out of all people, a janitor, a tired man in a faded uniform with a mop bucket rolling beside him, kneels down. He doesn't scold, he doesn't panic. Instead, he reaches into his cart, pulls out a small bottle of soap bubbles he keeps tucked away, and begins to blow. Soft, shimmering orbs float into the air, catching the light from the tall glass windows, and for the first time in minutes, the boy's sobs soften into little hiccups. He stretches out his fingers, chasing the bubbles, his laughter breaking through the storm. What the janitor doesn't know is that behind him, frozen in disbelief, stands the boy's mother. The CEO of the entire company. The woman everyone fears in boardrooms, the one with the power to end careers with a single word. But right now, she isn't a CEO. She's just a mother, standing helpless as she watches a stranger soothe her son with more patience and kindness than she's been able to muster all week. This story is about love where you least expect it, about how small acts of humanity can heal wounds bigger than we realize. And if this touches you already, if you believe kindness matters, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with me till the end, because this one will stay with you long after the screen goes dark. The janitor's name was Daniel. He wasn't just a janitor, he was a single father himself. His daughter, Emily, was 8, bright-eyed, and the light of his world. After his wife passed away 3 years earlier, Daniel had taken every odd job he could find, working nights and early mornings, just to keep food on their small kitchen table. The job at the towering corporate office building wasn't glamorous, but it was steady, and it came with enough flexibility that he could still pick Emily up from school most days. He carried exhaustion in his bones, but he also carried love, and sometimes, that was enough. That morning had been rough for Daniel. He'd gotten Emily to school late, the bus had left them behind, and he'd been scolded by a supervisor about streaks left on the windows from yesterday's cleaning. So when he saw the little boy in the lobby, kicking at his own backpack and crying uncontrollably, Daniel felt something familiar twist in his chest. He recognized the helplessness, the raw storm of a child's emotions, because he had seen it in Emily more times than he could count. He knew how it felt to be overwhelmed by the world at that age. And so he blew bubbles. Silly, simple bubbles. The boy, whose name he later learned was Ethan, reached out, caught one on his tiny palm, and for a second forgot his meltdown. Daniel didn't say much, just knelt there quietly, letting the boy reset his emotions one pop at a time. It wasn't long before Ethan was giggling through his tears. When the CEO stepped forward, Daniel startled. He turned, half expecting to be reprimanded for wasting time or distracting her child. But she didn't yell. Her eyes glistened with something softer, almost painful. She crouched down, touched Ethan's shoulder, and whispered, "Are you okay now, sweetheart?" Ethan nodded, clutching Daniel's sleeve for a moment before letting go. "Thank you," she said simply. Her voice, usually sharp as glass, cracked just a little. Daniel nodded, embarrassed, mumbling that it was nothing. But to her, it wasn't nothing. Over the next weeks, something unexpected began. Every morning, as Daniel polished floors or emptied bins, he would sometimes catch sight of the CEO and her son arriving. Ethan would break away from his mother and run toward Daniel's cart, asking if he had the bubbles again. Sometimes Daniel did, sometimes he didn't, but he always had a smile ready. Slowly, the CEO, her name was Claire, began to linger. She would ask small questions, about Emily, about how long Daniel had worked there. It was clear she was curious, though she tried to hide it behind her usual professional tone. One day, Claire admitted the truth. Ethan's father, he left when Ethan was just a baby, she said, staring out at the skyline from her corner office. "I've tried to balance everything, the company, being a mom, but most days. I feel like I'm failing him. Her voice was softer than Daniel had ever heard. He didn't give her a lecture, didn't offer hollow advice. He just said, kids don't need perfect. They just need to know they're loved. That simple sentence hit Claire harder than any motivational speech ever could. But life didn't magically become easy. Daniel still struggled to pay bills. His supervisor still made snide remarks about chatting up the boss whenever he saw Daniel and Claire talking. And Claire, despite her power, wrestled with guilt for every missed school play or bedtime story. Yet, a quiet bond formed between them, not romance at first, but respect. Claire began to notice Daniel's resilience, the way he gave his daughter every ounce of strength he had, and she envied the peace Emily carried in her eyes despite their hardships. One evening, when Ethan had another meltdown after a long day, Claire panicked. She called Daniel, not as an employee, but as someone she trusted. He came, not with grand solutions, but with the same patience as always. He sat on the carpet with Ethan, blowing bubbles, while Claire watched from the doorway, tears on her cheeks. For the first time,